Okay, welcome to our special episode for the Horror Not Fear campaign where we are talking about diversity in horror. This episode, we will be discussing some of our favorite Japanese horror films. And as always, we have around 3 or 4 that we'll kind of talk about and we'll quickly highlight. I'll go first with. Oh, are we introducing ourselves?
It doesn't. People know
Yeah.
us. I
Yeah.
mean, or they will never will.
Yeah. Okay.
Either way.
Um, so this voice is from Craig. That was Kyle who was talking there, and then Josh will be the other voice. um, so I will start first, and I am going to go with 2 movies that I'm saying 2 movies because it's the same director and they're both done in the same year, and they actually they are kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So it is Takashi Miike's Visitor Q and Happiness of the Katakuris. Both of them deal with kind of the structure of the Japanese family in very twisted comedic ways. Takashi Miike is known for, of course, over here for adaptation, Ichi the Killer. More recently, he's also done 13 Assassins. He's done over 100 films, so he's very prolific. But Happiness of the Katakuris is based off of the Korean film The Quiet Family, but instead of just making a normal kind of remake that is a little bit more standard, he went and made basically this crazy, outlandish musical with claymation, live action that has zombies and murder, but in general, it's about that's the hard part to explain, but in general, it's about this family that's trying to run a bed and breakfast, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and they keep hoping that people are going to come because someday a highway is supposed to come be built, and they have the perfect location. But unfortunately, that's not happening. And then they start finally receiving guests, and these guests start dying off through either suicide or accident or some means, one way or another. And the family, instead of going to the police because they don't want this to ruin their reputation, as they already don't get people, decide to start hiding the bodies. And from there, you have music and hijinks ensue. I guess I don't know. It's a lot of fun. It's a blast. It's of course very outlandish, and I love it. It's one of those ones that I return to often, and it's kind of one of my ones that I think I'll show people that may not be big horror fans, but it's funny and they're usually willing to laugh at it. Now, Visitor Q on the opposite end of the spectrum is still it's very twisted, but it still has a element of humor to it. Deals with a very dysfunctional family where the daughter is selling herself even to her own father. The son is beating their mother, and yeah, finally this kind of mysterious visitor comes up, and while tormenting this family in some way or another, also weirdly brings them together to the in this kind of incestuous relationship. But the meaning is bringing this family together. I don't want to spoil too much, and it's even if I say stuff, it's hard to spoil it. Um, Obviously, it's not as lighthearted and it's easy to watch as Happiness of the Katakuris, but I still recommend it for those that are Takashi Miike fans. It's a little bit harder to find because of its content, but yeah, they're great, and check them out.
Cool. I still need to see Visitor Q.
Yeah, I've only seen it the once, and it's yeah,
I think I'll like it.
yeah,
Sounds fucked up.
yeah.
Okay, so my first pick is Tetsuo The Iron Man by Shinya Tsukamoto. It's his first film. It's basically this guy you find out he committed like a hit and run, and feels guilty about it, and then he gets stalked by this. He gets like infected with this metal, and there's other people infected with metal, and they're trying to kill him. And it's really fucking hard to explain. It's very like experimental and abstract, but I think it's only like 70 minutes. But it's fucking incredible. It's just one of those movies that's totally batshit crazy and full of like all these crazy effects and stop motion and like just kind of everything you could imagine in terms of techniques, and one of the most original things I've ever seen. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, you definitely should.
And it was, if those of you who watch The Last Drive-In, this last season, Joe Bob Briggs talked about it, and he kind of gives some commentary, but it's hard to give commentary on it. So, but yeah, he gives a lot of good information on
that. Yeah, that was an odd selection for Last Drive-In, but cool that they did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll use the Miike film that everyone knows, which is Audition. And I'm picking Audition because I think it might be one of the best movies ever made. I'll never forget the first time I saw it. And it still has kind of a pretty sizable impact, I think, which is weird. It's really fucking messed up. Not only just the plot, but just the way it's shot too. And I just remember, it was several years ago. I don't even know how long when I first saw it. And it just gives you this overwhelming sense of being creeped the fuck out. And, yeah, I'm sure everyone that's listening to this knows damn well what Audition is, but, I figure I'll mention it anyway. So
it's one of those ones for me too that kind of, so for those of you that, if you haven't seen the movie, it's notorious for kind of being where a good chunk of it almost plays like a romantic comedy in some way. But then, I don't know, returning to it, especially in kind of with modern eyes, it's weird that it's hard because you sympathize for this man that's lost his wife, but then the way he's going about like finding a new wife is it's creepy too. And I don't know, it's one, yeah, you can rewatch it and get different meanings each time. And
yeah, he's kind of asking for it too. Yeah, he's definitely sympathetic, but yeah, he's doing it in a underhanded, weird way that you kind of get what you asked for.
Yeah. Okay, so my next one is going to be Shinya Tsukamoto as well, but 1991's Hirako The Goblin, which was based off of a manga. So this one kind of holds a place in my heart because this was kind of one of when the three of us were all in low residency in school together, and everybody else decided to go out and I guess, socialize and do things. We stayed back and watched this film. Again, it is kind of one of those that there's a lot of kind of context that is very Japanese that doesn't necessarily, it translates, but probably not to the effect that some people would like. But I love the movie. It deals basically with an archaeologist who, this cave is opened up and these demon-like creatures kind of that resemble the heads of people that have been possessed with spider legs and a bunch of other things, they start infecting this school during summer break. And these kids go there and kind of get picked off. And then, the archaeologist who's coming to see his friend, I believe, or find his friend who was on this site, they get into a whole boatload of trouble and have to deal with that. And every time a person dies, for some reason their face gets burned into one of these kids' backs. And no, it's silly. and it's fun. It's kind of it's really wacky. I'd put it in kind of in the same way as I'd talk about Happiness of the Katakuri's, where it's just wacky and kind of a good time. It's also one of those that is hard to find, and I think they have kind of a one DVD release from when it was first released, but I always hope that they'll do a re-release, some company, so Scream Factory or whoever, Arrow, I'm guessing, whoever's willing to.
There is a new Tsukamoto box set, and I'm sure it's not in there.
No, I think that one only has his Iron Man.
It has,
stuff,
I think it
and
has
then-
like everything else, almost
Yeah.
everything else he did. But yeah, this one's obviously great, and it's interesting too because that's his second film. So to go from Tetsuo the Iron Man to this thing, which is so like it makes sense that he made it, but it's also tonally so different.
Yeah. So if you can find it, check it out.
I'm next, right? Shit.
Yeah.
So my next one is Kaidon, which is, or Quaidon, I don't know if you pronounce that W, I don't think you do. Which is actually like a book of Japanese folk tales, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a Japanese horror anthology from the 60s. And it's really great. There's a couple that are slow. I mean, it's obviously like you watch the whole movie and you can tell it's, done in a studio and stuff. And there's, they're supposed to be in the woods or the forest or whatever, and you can just see a backdrop and that kind of thing. So it's very stylistic, but there's a couple that are really genuinely creepy, I think. And it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of interesting to see their culture's take on different monsters. Obviously, they have some that are their own completely, but there is one that's kind of like about a vampire, but it's totally, the way the story is completely different.
I need to see that.
It's I have a VHS copy. Like, I don't even know if maybe Criterion did something.
I think they, I'm pretty sure
Criterion
they're the
did one.
Criterion, yeah.
Yeah. It's long, but it's pretty interesting.
Okay. So for my next one, I'm going to do Kinji Fukasaku's Battle Royale.
Yes.
From 2000. I can't believe that's 20 fucking years old.
Yeah.
Battle Royale is amazing. I'm not going to get into a bunch of plot stuff, but basically high school kids are forced to kill each other, and they're given random weapons. Sometimes you get a good one, sometimes you don't. You better fucking hope that you get the machine gun, in other words, and not the fucking garbage can lid. It's demented as all hell, and it's also funny. It's extremely graphic and gory too, just like you would think, something like this should be. Again, I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, you probably know what Battle Royale is, or at least you've heard of it. Like I said, I can't believe it's 20 fucking years old, but yeah. There's never been anything quite like it. Here in the United States, we got Hunger Games films, which is basically just stealing Battle Royale and watering it the fuck down. Don't ever watch Hunger Games. Anyway, Battle Royale, yeah. If you haven't seen it, you should see it because it's amazing.
There was a whole, I think when it first came out and it did well on the festivals or whatever, they talked about an American remake, like they do, because that was the big J horror phase. But then I think it was because it's too hard of a topic for Americans to talk about, especially during that time you had was a couple years after Columbine and a bunch of other school shootings.
Yeah, I mean, it was too late too because they were already working on all these like Hunger Games and There's some other series, but God, they suck in comparison. I mean, I haven't even seen them, but they make like 5 films. Who gives a shit? Just watch Battle Royale.
Exactly.
Okay, so my next one is the animated film based on the book called Perfect Blue. Now, Perfect Blue is directed by Satoshi
Satoshi Kon, yeah.
Yeah, Satoshi Kon. Um, and this is about, as I've talked about in older episodes, where in Japan there's these people that are basically at a young age, they are cast into the light of being a celebrity, and that is basically their role. So when they retire, at the age of 25 or something like that. But it is a woman who is part of a Japanese idol group. It's also kind of like a pop group, I guess, as we know over here. And she retires to kind of pursue being considered a serious actress. And throughout it, she's stalked, but you don't know if she's going crazy or not. And she's made to do kind of some graphic scenes for this movie, and it's there's people arguing if it's going to hurt her career or help it in kind of this pursuit. And I won't give away too much because it's one of those thrillers that it's better to go on cold, but it's great. Aronofsky, even though he's admitted to being a big fan, he's even used some of the scenes from it are been inspired by, especially in Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan, even though I can't remember off the top of my head. But one of them, he says that he wasn't, and it wasn't an homage, or he wasn't inspired. But obviously, if you watch that movie and then see his stuff, yes, he was. I'm saying it here. But yeah, it's great. It's only, I think, 88 minutes or something like that. And it's also considered one of the best Japanese anime films of all time.
Yeah, it's great, and it is. Black Swan is a total ripoff. I mean, Black Swan's great, but it's and Nolan rips off Satoshi Kon a lot too.
Yeah,
because his other films, I haven't seen all of them, but I saw like Paprika. But he does a lot of stuff that's was totally ripped off in like Inception and shit, with like dreams and the way like there's almost MC Escher like cities and all this stuff. Yeah. These fucking thieves. All right, so my next one is House or Houseu by Nobuhiko Obayashi. It's totally this movie. I love this movie. This is a good movie to go with Tetsuo the Iron Man, because it's just totally batshit crazy. Like, it's like they just were like, all right, what can we do? What are the effects that we can do? Okay, we're going to do every single fucking one of them. We just invented like video camera weird ass like blue screen effects that don't even work that well. We're using them. It's totally batshit crazy. It's more of a horror comedy. I mean, I think there's a couple like genuinely creepy moments just because it's so bizarre and out of left field, but it's pretty comedic. And it's just these girls going to this one girl's aunt's house out in the woods for the summer, and she's kind of actually been dead all along while she was like home grieving her husband who never returned from World War II. That's all like subtext, but it's so off the wall. I don't know. I love it a lot. I know Craig has mixed feelings.
No, I enjoy it. It the best way to describe what it's always described, I can't remember. It's like Scooby-Doo meets. There's always some comparison, but yeah, no, it is fun. I have to rewatch it every time I try and watch it. I don't know. It's either late at night or something, and I feel like I need to be more aware of
I would say it's one if it's ever playing somewhere. Like, I was able to see it in theaters, and I think it makes the movie better because it is a funny, it's a ridiculous movie. Seeing it with an audience makes a difference.
I was always worried that I would never be able to see it without paying the fucking $50 for the Criterion disc, and it was randomly on fucking Turner Classic one day, and I was like, "You got to be fucking kidding me!" So, and it was literally like 3:00 on a Sunday. They were showing Houseu, so I got to see it finally in the most random way imaginable.
Nice.
I am going to use yet another Shinya Tsukamoto film. I'm going to use Nightmare Detective. Nightmare Detective. This is what Google says Nightmare Detective is about. It says, a detective investigates a string of suicides where the victims slash themselves in their sleep. Okay, sure. Nightmare Detective is kind of Japan's, I guess, Nightmare on Elm Street. In this film, it's actually Tsukamoto himself plays the villain, and he's basically like Freddy Krueger. There's two reasons that I picked this. This is by no means his best work, but he did write it as well as direct it, and a lot of the action takes place in people's dreams, right? And unlike every Nightmare on Elm Street film, Nightmare Detective has some of the most realistic dream sets I think I've ever seen in any kind of movie. Because how are your dreams, right? They're so full of impossible to film shit. But in Nightmare Detective, just for an example, there's one dude that has this dream, and he's in this room in a house, and there's literally just thousands upon thousands of bicycles in this room. You know, it's like, okay, I could buy that. The film doesn't make any sense either. And that's why I think the Google synopsis is hilarious, because I guess that happens in it. It's debatable. It's impossible to follow. I think like a lot of the Japanese stuff, especially from this time, like I said, this Nightmare Detective is 2006. And like most things, I think the remake was going to be a thing until they realized that this movie is too fucked up to do. So I think that got shelved. But yeah, check out Nightmare Detective, because it is it's something that would only be made in Japan. And yeah, you're gonna have a hard time following it, but it's worth it.
Okay, so I guess I'll move on to my final one, which is R100, and it's Hitachi Matsumoto. Matsumoto. So this is a film that it stars who plays. Gotta find his name. He was Ichi in Ichi the Killer.
Oh, Tadanobu Asana. Yeah, Tadanobu Asana. Yeah, he's awesome.
So the story is about this father who, his wife has been in a coma, and she's a, for lack of a better term, she's a vegetable and it's been a very long time, and he decides to he signs this contract that for a whole year, dominatrixes will come at any point and they will do things to him. And that's what it is at its core, the movie. So some of them will hit him around. The first scene opens with him meeting this one at a diner, and he starts to drink some food, and then she roundhouse kicks him and then makes him clean up and all that. There's some that will come and try and drown him, choke him, spit on him, a whole bunch of things. Anyways, so he decides after taking this for not a whole year that he wants to break the contract. Unfortunately, you cannot break the contract or they will come after you. That's all I can give really on that. I mean, you can give more, but I don't think it will help or hinder it regardless. But what's interesting is every time he experiences some of this pain or this pain and pleasure together, it shows his face blow up a little bit like a balloon, and then this this ping happens, and basically like a sound wave comes from him, and it's interesting and it's very crazy and fun, and I'd recommend it if you can find it. It's Alamo Drafthouse, which I know they're kind of hard about putting their stuff online, but yeah, it might be on Amazon. I don't know for sure, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I need to watch that finally.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other part, it's a movie within a movie. So you have the Japanese rating board going in to watch the movie, and then they'll come out for breaks and talk about it, and then it's R100 because the director said that you have to be 100 years old before you'll understand the film. So yeah, that's it.
Nice. All right. So my last one is Oni Baba, another 60s Japanese movie. This one I just saw finally. It's one of those ones, like a Criterion one, I just never got around to seeing until recently. But basically it's this woman and her daughter-in-law right after the Japanese, or kind of during the Japanese Civil War. They live out in the middle of nowhere in these grassy fields, and they're waiting for the son to come home, the husband of her daughter-in-law. He's in the war somewhere, and they survive by killing samurai that get lost out in these fields that are like running from the war or wounded or whatever. They'll kill them and steal all their armor and sell it to this guy who lives in a cave. and this other guy comes back who was a friend of their husband, and tells them that their son died. And the younger woman and him start having a relationship, and the older woman doesn't want it to happen because she knows she can't survive on her own. And basically she starts pretending to be this demon. There's more to it because I'm not going to recount the whole film, but she pretends to be this demon to scare her daughter-in-law from going off and seeing this guy every night and having an affair. And then it kind of takes a darker turn, but it's really good, and it's just got a creepy atmosphere. Like, it takes a while before it really becomes horror. It's more, dramatic, but there's just so many slow motion shots of this field and this grass, and I'm like, nothing's happening, and I'm totally fucking creeped out right now. I don't know what you're doing to me. It's definitely one worth checking out.
Yeah, I still need to.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that nobody else was going. I wasn't going to mention this, but I feel like it should be mentioned, especially as I was talking about Nightmare Detective being something that could only be made in Japan. Kim Ji-woon's I Saw the Devil also.
Oh, that's Korean.
Is it?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay, never mind.
We're saving that one.
I was just kidding.
We're saving that one for next time.
Yeah. Well, then
okay.
We'll do Korean shit next.
Yeah. Yeah, part of this too, we didn't want to, of course, there are all the films that you can look up, like The Ring, The Eye, whatever else, The Grudge.
Pulse.
Yeah. Pulse
It was really hard for me to not pick Pulse.
Yeah, I wanted to pick Pulse as well, but then I really want to do an actual episode on it where we get to talk about it, because I love that film. But yeah, there's a ton of those ones too. Suicide Club,
Dark Water.
Yeah,
a bunch of obvious ones.
but we wanted to also provide options that didn't kind of fit into those ones that had the huge, big budget American remake. But yeah, did we go through our lists?
I think so, right?
Yes.
I wanted to do Each of the Killer too, but it's like not technically horror. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's great, but
yeah, check out. Yeah, I would say if you can find them, sometimes they're harder to do. Evil Dead Trap 2. We just did an episode on, but there's a ton of great Japanese horror that is away from the standard ones that we're so accustomed to. And if you've watched them and like them or hate them, or if any of us chatting about them have inspired you to search them out, feel free to comment, talk to us about it, whatever. We're here, and enjoy.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is produced by Josh Lee, Craig Dram, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Audio editing by Kyle Hintz.